Welcome back to Crown Chats. I'm so excited to welcome today's guest. She is a best-selling author of small town and holiday romances, including some Hallmark Channel favorites like Christmas Joy, The Secret Ingredient, Christmas in Evergreen, and Sand Dollar Cove. Her new novel, To Light the Way Forward, is available now wherever books are sold. Please join me in welcoming Nancy Naigle.
Thank you. I'm so tickled to be here.
I'm excited to have you. I'm a big fan. I'm a dork, and I even have like some of my books with me because that's what I do. So, what got you interested in writing, and specifically the romance genre?
Yeah, well, interestingly enough, I mean, a lot of writers knew they wanted to be writers from the get-go, right? And I didn't. I always knew I wanted to be a corporate girl, and that was my thing. You know, I was a voracious reader, but never thought for 1 second that I'd be an author. And it wasn't until I was 40 years old. I was 40. My job, I was a senior vice president with Bank of America. And at the time, my task was to offshore declining technologies. And that was really hard. You know, I knew a lot of those people. They had worked for me in the past. They were great at what they did. They happened to be on technology that was declining. And so they were losing their jobs. And I was at the pivot point of that. And my heart was just really aching over that. So I was reading like crazy because I was having a lot of bad days. And one morning I woke up and I thought, you know, if I could write one book to help one girl through one bad day, that would be an amazing gift. And it was really more to make my heart feel good in the beginning. You know, I was just trying to even the scales. And so I started trying to write a book. And the strange thing is that you would think that being a senior vice president, I'd have been smart enough to know that writing a book wasn't easy. And I had spent all my years writing PowerPoint presentations, and we don't even use punctuation in them. So I got a learning curve to get through. And it took me about 9 years to get that first book contracted. And the first one was called Sweet Tea and Secrets. It was a romantic mystery set in a real town in Virginia. Well, a real town name, but I had fictionalized the whole town. Still to this day, there were 6 books in that series. I still get Facebook messages from people saying, oh my gosh, I just went by the sign on Route 58 for Adams Grove, but I didn't have time to stop. And I'm like, well, that's good because there is nothing there. There's the Rotary or Ruritan Club and a couple churches. That's it. Yeah, so that was really what got me into writing. And I had about 8 or 9 books published by 2014 when I lost my husband. And it was at that point that I knew that I wanted to take an early retirement and be able to write stories and spread joy. And that was going to be my mission, which really wasn't very different from the original mission that I set out with, which was to write one book to help one girl through one bad day. And so that's just continued to be my journey. And, you know, the link up with Hallmark was so interesting because, you know, when I had gotten my first literary agent, she had asked me, kind of like you do in any job interview, where do you want to be in 5 years? You know, and I was like, well, you know, I want to write some more books. I want to do some women's fiction. And wow, wouldn't it be awesome to like have a Hallmark movie? Because I've always been a big Hallmark fan, right? And my agent, you know, was like, yeah, you and everybody else, you know, kind of poo-pooed that idea off. And I was, you know, huge fan and was setting up a Facebook pajama party one Christmas season. And the movie was The Christmas Note. And if you remember it, it had a military angle. Well, I was born and raised in Virginia Beach. And so, you know, the military is huge in that area. And although I didn't have military people in my direct connection, I went to school with so many people that grew up in that lifestyle. And I have so much admiration for the moms that are raising those kids and the kids that are missing out on things and holding down that family life, you know, while their dad or mom is out. So thought it was a good fit. I was texting, you know, tweeting back then, tweeting and on Facebook saying, hey, come join me for this Facebook party. We're going to have a blast. And I even had a little caricature made of me in pajamas because pajamas are my favorite thing anyway. Yeah. And I got a tweet back from the account, The Christmas Note. And so I read it and it said, hey, thanks for building buzz about our movie. And I sent back a tweet and said, hey, you're welcome because I love some Hallmark movies. And then 2 weeks later, I got a direct message from them that said, "Hey, we didn't realize you were an author. Maybe one day one of your movies or books will become a movie." And I was like, oh, like little angels sang in my head, and and so all I sent back was "A girl can dream," because I knew it was just a note. But for me, there were things happening inside me that, and everybody that knows me knows, like my keyword is believe. Like you got to believe it. And a couple weeks later, my agent got the call that said, "Hey, Crown Media is interested in Christmas Joy." And the interesting thing about that was that I had turned in that book in May the previous year, and this is January.
Mm.
So for 7 months, it's been sitting in my editor's office, and we haven't gotten around to edits yet. It was going to come out that following year. And so we had to get on the stick. My editor, my agent called my editor, got me, we got together, threw the edits together, got it back over the fence. And later they optioned it, and it became that first Christmas movie on Hallmark for me. And I mean, what a dream come true. Seriously. I did cry the whole time on set, that first movie.
I mean, yeah. How amazing, though. I mean, one, what an incredible story of, I mean, you could say that's like angels or manifestation or whatever it is, but I mean, in a way, you put yourself out there, pajama party and all, and just making, putting the word out there, and it came back to you. But how do you know how they ended up even coming across your title? Like, did they just start kind of digging into you, being like, "Hey, what's new?" Or,
So,
um,
the interesting thing was I always thought it was the tweet that got me that option
yeah.
for Christmas Joy. But later, while I was on set at the filming, almost a year later after that, I was talking to the gal who was running all that production, and she's like, "Yeah, I didn't even know about that tweet. I happened to see it in Barnes and Noble on a shelf, and the pretty red cover with the wreath is what caught her eye." And so, yeah, that's the one. I love that cover. And yeah, so, I don't really know what happened to put all the pieces together. It was of no doing of my own, no magic of mine or my my agents. It was just, it all happened. And I'm so grateful for it. And I loved being on set, was so amazing because I didn't know anything about how that happened. And, being on a Hallmark movie set is it's like the biggest choreography that you could ever imagine, right? You're in this beautiful space that feels and looks like Hallmark, but there are about 1,000,000 miles of electric cords everywhere,
Yeah.
extension cords and ladders and guys with snow machines on their shoulder. And there's just so much going on. And even at the end of like a 14-hour day of filming, everybody is still kind and courteous and up. And it just it felt just like you wanted it to feel. And even the catering
Around,
food
yeah.
was good, the snacks. And I'll never forget them telling me they're going to take me over to Video Village. And I'm like, ooh, what's that? And I'm thinking it's going to be this fancy trailer or something. And it's like that 10 by 10 black tent. That's it. And it had, the director's chairs. Well, I'm 5'2". Getting up in one of those director's chair is like, gymnastics.
Yeah.
And so I got to sit in that chair, with my name on the back of it and watch that first time when they click the real clapper. Like you're like, do they really do that? Yes, they do. And see them start, repeating words back that I wrote. And the strange thing was that there was my favorite scene in that story was when Joy is going through the Christmas ornaments and she finds that green ornament that her mama had given her. And it was so special to her. And there's so many more details in the book about that. But that was just a really special scene for me. That's what they were filming when I sat in that chair that day. Isn't that crazy?
Yeah, that is, oh my gosh, like
Yeah.
how, yeah, surreal.
Overwhelming. Yeah. Surreal. And
I would be
so
crying. I like want to cry for you just
see,
hearing that. So
right.
I would have
And
been
so
crying.
I did, man. I was crying, and the snow machines are blowing snow. I got snow coming over my jacket. My hair's getting bigger, and I'm just crying. And the producer walked over and she said, "Are you okay?" And I was like, "Yes." And she said, "Well, do you like it?" I'm like, "I love it." She said, "Then you can cry all you want." And I said, "Good, because I'm probably gonna do that."
Yeah. And a number of your novels have been adapted into Hallmark Channel movies. So I'm just curious as to how involved are you in that entire process? How is your book acquired? do you have any input in casting or the script revision, or I guess how involved are you in the overall production process?
I had zero input on any of it. And actually, when I got on set with Christmas Joy, I'm a Southern girl. I went with bags and bags of all this North Carolina because I was living in North Carolina at the time. All these little treasures from North Carolina, the chocolate, the Dewey's ginger cookies, all of it, presents for everyone. And I had a special present for Molly, the little girl that's in the book, right? And so I'm giving all the gifts out, and then I'm like, well, where's Molly? Is she like getting tutored today, or what's going on? And they're like, Molly? That was my first indicator that everybody didn't make it into the movie. Like I really had no idea. So yeah, no, I had zero input. And there have been a couple of funny things that have happened where, they'll tell me up front, well, we're not going to do this in that movie. And like Hope at Christmas, for example, they point blank said, we love what you did in the book when B passes. And you come into the book knowing she's old. She's trying to find that person to take over her bookstore and all. And she's like, but wait, we can't let her die at Christmas on Hallmark, and I'm like, I get it. But, I wish they'd consulted me, because what they did was at the end of the story, they have her go off on a cruise with the mayor, which is super nice if you haven't read the book. But if you've read the book, the mayor was buying presents for his wife in her store. So I'm like, it's been good if you'd ask me, but it's still, as long as the stories are still heartwarming, that's really my only goal, is to uplift somebody. So as long as it's heartwarming and happy, if it doesn't match the story exactly, it's fine. It doesn't hurt my feelings.
And you have an interesting relationship with Hallmark Channel. They obviously respected your writing so much that they came to you and said, would you adapt some of our films into novels? How did that conversation play out?
It was really interesting because they had contacted a girlfriend of mine, a very well-known writer, and she happened to be working on one of her first women's fiction books, and she was just tied up. She was like, could not do it. And she gave them my name. And so they'd already worked with me before. So they were like, oh, a good fit, So they contacted me and they said, hey, we've got this new, this Christmas idea that we're super excited about, and we're looking for somebody to write the novel to accompany it. And I said, oh, that sounds really cool. Well, what's it about? And they're like, we can't tell you. I'm like, you can't tell me. And so at first I was like, how do I even know if I can write it? And then my heart was like, it's Hallmark, who cares? So I was really excited. It was funny because they were supposed to send me the script and the outlines. I guess I don't think they were sending me the movie first, just the script ahead of time. And I didn't get it. And so it was the same day that everybody else saw the movie that I saw it for the first time. I didn't know the concept, nothing, So I watched it, videotaped it, the whole 9 yards. And it was like the perfect story for me, because people that know me know that my late husband was a goat farmer. And almost all my books have a mention of a goat, or maybe just a phrase that uses the kidding or goat, reference. But that's all for him. That's just my way to stay connected to him all these years. And when I watched the movie and those little goats ran past the barn, I was like, this is so perfect for me. So that was a lot of fun. And it was a huge honor to be the voice of Evergreen. Those movies are beautiful. And I will say this, I thought that it was going to be super easy because you know what the story is and you've got the screenplay and, they'll just turn this into a book. It was way more pressure to write those books. First of all, the screenplay was only 20,000 words. And generally my novels are 88,000, but they wanted at least 65,000 for these books. And so that's, I'm having to create a story that's not there in the movie, onto the page. And the scenes were so beautiful. That town has so much specific, tangible things that people remember and kind of embrace, that to be able to recreate that in a way that feels familiar to somebody was really a big challenge for me. I took it pretty seriously, and I feel like they hit the note, because people love them. So I'm super pleased about that, but huge honor to be the voice of Evergreen. It's a very nostalgic town.
Did they give you so you did see the movie before you wrote it? Um, did they give you a lot of freedom when you wrote the novel with it, or did they kind of give you guidelines of like stay within this? Because obviously the series continues, and maybe you knew that or didn't know that at the time. But I guess how much freedom or flexibility did you have to, if they removed one of your characters before, can you add in a new character, that kind of stuff?
Yeah, in book, I don't think they knew that the series was going to continue
Okay.
when they booked me to write that first one, and we did. It was a one at a time thing. In book one, they wouldn't let me move off the script at all. Like they even wanted the dialogue to match, and I was like, you know, the dialogue in a script is not always, reader ready. It doesn't read well on the page, and so we had a little bit of pushback on that, trying to figure out. And they wouldn't let me add in like backstory either on that first book, Christmas and Evergreen. The first one had to be exactly like it was in the movie. Now, book 2 and 3, they gave me free reign. I got to add backstory. I got to add, characters were necessary. And on book 1, even though they wouldn't let me change anything from movie start to movie end, it was 2 weeks before the deadline. I am struggling to make that word count because, like, you can only describe the snowman and the, in the diner, snow globe so many ways. And so I'm struggling to make word count. And the editor contacted me and she said, I think I forgot to tell you something. I'm like, what is that? And I'm thinking, praying it's not to add 10 more thousand words. And she said, we'd like for you to do an original epilogue. And I was like, no problem. I got this. So in that epilogue, I was able to address some of the things that I kind of wanted to address during the story. Um, for example, my husband was a goat farmer. So I lived on a farm. I worked that farm with him in between, international calls for the bank and all. And I knew a lot about, animal husbandry and stuff. And in the movie, the farmer is like freaking out over this one cow that's getting ready to calve. And I'm like, that is not how farmers act. It just isn't, freaking out that the veterinarian's going to be gone. So I was able to, in that epilogue, kind of explain off that the reason the farmer had been so freaked out was because it was this big, expensive in vitro program. And then when the calf was born, it didn't look anything like its mom. I was able to explain that too. So it worked out. Everything worked out happily ever after. And I was able to use some of those 4-H memories from my husband where, we worked with the kids and we even had a classroom on our farm where we helped kids learn how to not only show their goats, but, all of the animal husbandry things to keep them alive and well.
And do you have any fun stories from being on set for some of your movies?
Yeah, Hope at Christmas was even more fun for me because it wasn't so emotional. Christmas Joy was just like, whoa. So I went to Hope at Christmas. I stayed longer. I was there for almost a whole week. The weather was miserable. It was raining the entire time, but you can't tell that in the movie. And they strategically placed those big tarp things up, and it looks like just another snowy day. But Ryan Pavey signed, was the star on that, the hero, and Scotty Thompson was the heroine. And they did a great job. They had great chemistry. It was fun. It was neat to watch. But there were a couple fun things that happened on set there. One being that Ryan between scenes is so fun. And we have a little girl in that movie, and Rayanne was her, stage name. And Ryan would forever be out there, like kind of, messing around and, teasing with her, doing his Arnold Schwarzenegger impressions. And like that just really set with me. I was like, oh, he's so sweet. And then Scotty, I was at the church down somewhere in Vancouver. I don't know. And they were at the church and they were filming the gingerbread competition. And Scotty and one of the other co-stars, they were riding around, like jumping around, like they were riding horses. It would, just skating around the room. It was just so many funny things that you just got to see them in real life, kind of being playful and fun and just endearing, that I really, really loved. So, and the other thing was that it was so doggone cold, and I felt so bad for the cameramen that were trying to film all this stuff, that by about day 3, I went to the sporting goods store and bought wool socks for all those guys because I felt so bad for them. And so I felt like, I felt like part of the family.
Yeah, it's like the things they do to make these, these movies that are seemingly so effortless look
Yeah. Well,
all
and
the effort
then
it takes.
yeah, and Sand Dollar Cove got the COVID scoot. They were supposed to make it. COVID hit. It didn't get made. Got made a couple years later. Didn't even get invited to go on set. It didn't follow my story at all, but it's still really heartwarming. And the stars were beautiful and all that. So that was great. But it was funny because I got a note. I guess it was last fall from one of the people that was on the director's team, and they were like, "Hey, we've got some of this memorabilia from Sand Dollar Cove. We got the plaque from the house. Would you like it?" And I was like, "Yeah, I really would love that," because I never really got any memorabilia from any of the sets, and so it was the first time, and it was the one that was least like my book, but it didn't matter still. So it's on my bookshelf now.
I would be like, if you saw like the ornament scene where that breaks, I would have been like sneaking over there grabbing a chunk of that. It's like,
I,
oh, I know where it went. Yeah, it's
I know, and I kept in
like
my
it's
heart, I was
something,
thinking they're going to give me that ornament that Ben made.
right?
They didn't.
Or one of the cookies or something. It's like,
I know, exactly. Well, and that was one of the funny things too. On the Hope at Christmas, the little girl Rayanne, they would do like these 4 or 5 takes of her taking that bite of that cookie. When she's like, mmm. And in the movie, she looks like she's loving it. She'd been begging for a whole bunch of them, and in reality, every time she'd be like, and I was like, "Can't y'all give her a cookie that she likes?"
she's a great actress, so it's okay.
She is a great little actress. I'm sure she's going to do great things.
And you have a new novel, To Light the Way Forward, out now. Can you tell us a little bit about it and what we can expect?
I can. So the To Light the Way Forward is the second in the Shell Collector series. The Shell Collector, starred Christopher Russell, yay, and is streaming on Fox Nation. And To Light the Way Forward I never expected to write a second book to that series. The Shell Collector was truly my healing story. It's not my personal story, but it was my journey through the emotions of grief and navigating that to healing and knowing that I could find happiness again. And so it was a really emotional book and tough. And I never thought I'd write another book. But when I saw the movie play out, the actor that played Tug, the diner owner, absolutely stole my heart. And there's a scene at the end where he kind of declares his love to Maeve. And I'm like, oh my gosh, how did I end this and not let him find love? This is horrible. He has to have love. And so To Light the Way Forward is Tug's story. And it was so wonderful for me to get to go back to Welks Island to experience, Paul and Amanda and the kids and, take them through, a little further in their lives, because the Shell Collector came out in 2021. So it's been a while. So I was able to pull those characters a little further, ahead in their lifespans, not like just a few months forward. And yeah, it was like going home for me. It really comforted me. And it's an uplifting story. It has a lot of funny moments in it. It's not the tearjerker two tissue box story that the Shell Collector was. And I came out of that knowing my editor was like, "Oh, you got to write book 3." And so there's a book 3 also in kind of a teaser. It's called Home No Matter Where, and it'll be out next year about this time. And I don't have the date yet, but it'll be in my newsletter soon. And I'm so excited to be writing that one too. We're in edits now. It's beautiful. It's uplifting. And I might have to do 4. I don't know. I just love that town.
I don't think anyone would be mad about it. So we'll definitely have to have you back on to talk about the next one. Maybe, and maybe we get some more movies out of it. We'll talk to Christopher and see if he's up for it. We'll just throw him in there
He'll
too.
be up for it. Yeah, when I watched your interview with him and you were asking him, well, which Christmas movie would you like to redo? And I was like, no, don't do Christmas. Tell him to like.
We'll work on it. We'll work on it.
That's right. That's right.
And that brings us to our final segment, which I call a little crown to crown, which is simply a rapid fire response. I'm going to give you a topic and you'll give me the first answer that comes to mind.
You got it.
Dream vacation.
The mountain retreat.
If there was a Hallmark movie all about Nancy Naigle, who would play you?
Oh, I would want Erin Cahill to play me. I love her. And she's from Virginia.
Perfect. You just got to get her around some goats and we'll be good, right?
I think she can do it. I think
Uh,
she can do just about anything.
Pretty much. What is your best advice to new writers?
Mm. That's a good one because when you don't know what you don't know, you can spend a lot of time spinning your wheels asking a lot of people questions that there are no answers to. Like there is no process. You have to find your own. And I also feel like you have to write the story that's true to your heart. Only you can tell the story your way. You could give the same story to 5 authors right now, right today, plot all chapter by chapter written out, and we would all write it 5 different ways. Trust yourself to tell the story the way you were made to tell it. I really think it's the best advice, and believe you can do it.
And lastly, a favorite charity or organization to give a shout out to that holds a place in your heart.
Operation Smile. It's located, the headquarters were in Norfolk. Oddly enough, I had no idea it was going to happen. Christmas Joy, we're filming. They suddenly bring out these ornaments and stuff for us to sign from Balsam Hill, which was one of the sponsors. And then after I autograph mine and turn it back in, they tell us that they were raising money for Operation Smile with it. And I was like, oh my gosh, that. And my best friend used to work for Operation Smile. I think it's a wonderful organization, and they've done some really beautiful work that has changed a lot of children's lives.
And that wraps us up. Thank you so much for being here. I'm such a huge fan. Clearly, I need more books. And so, therefore, everybody needs to keep up with all of the exciting stories you have coming soon. So, please let everybody know where they can find and follow you to keep up with all news Nancy Naigle.
Number one, my website, because I have control over that. Nobody can take it or steal it or hide it. So nancynaigle.com. You can find all my events there, everything new about what's coming out with the books or the movies. I am on Insta and Facebook, of course, but you never know when those things are going to get tripped up. So, definitely my newsletter on my website. And my books are everywhere books are sold.
And that wraps up another episode of Crown Chats. Thank you so much for joining me. We still have so many more exciting things to come for Christmas in July, and we have some super exciting guests booked over the next few months, so you can't miss out on all the fun. So please be sure you like and subscribe to this YouTube channel. And of course, follow me, Haley, at Crown the Halls on Instagram. And don't forget, we have some sweet merch with Dressing Festive. You can find that linked here on this episode or in my Instagram bio. So until next time, wear your crown. Your crown may tilt, may it never fall, but you are beautiful and you are strong.